Welcome, Reverend Karmen Michael Smith, author of Holy Queer. Thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Well, I really just want to begin by asking you to tell us a little bit about yourself and your work with the church.
Born and raised in small town Texas, Amarillo, way up north
Okay.
near Oklahoma, if some people don't know, off Route 66,
Mhm.
and moved to the East Coast early 2000s and always was called a city kid, but I grew up in the church. I tell people that I grew up on the third pew, which means we went to church a lot, very often.
Mhm.
And so I grew up watching this great dynamic experience known then as the Black church of
Mhm.
people just giving and being in community and then that Southern hospitality. And so as I got older and, coming to grips with being gay, I was like, oh, wait, what is happening here? Because now this place isn't so giving and loving.
Yeah.
And I was always told, you'll be a minister when you grow up. And I was like, I know something you don't know.
Mhm.
I didn't think it was really possible. And as I moved throughout my life and here on the East Coast, I began to heed my call and begin to do work in the church. I've always served in the church in some capacity, but I heeded the call to ministry in 2011.
Would you talk a little bit about your role as director of the Center for Community Engagement and Social Justice and what you do there?
Yes, so I am the inaugural director. Yay, as a Black and gay man, I
Mhm.
am in a leadership role that lets me meet people on their best day. I mean, the Center for Community Engagement and Social Justice is at the famed Union Theological Seminary, where faith and justice meet. So, what I really do in this role is people come and we are a hub. We are a hub for our internal community of scholars like Kelly Brown Douglas and Cornell West and Tracy Alexander to be able to, I mean, Michelle Alexander to be able to come and connect with community, connect with people who have bold visions for justice. And at the same time, if someone has a bold vision for justice and they're like, I just need a little help, I need more information, I need a little fuel behind it, they can come to the center and meet with me and my team, and we are able to connect you with our internal community or maybe even some other organizations that are doing great work as well.
Great, great. And people need that so much right now. So thank you for your work. Would you talk about writing Holy Queer and why you felt you needed to?
Um, this book came to me about 10 years ago, and I wasn't ready. I was trying to write, but I was also writing out of desperation. I didn't want to get evicted from my apartment. It was during the recession, and I was like, okay, I'm going to write this book. But when I gave it time, it came back to me. Um, right in the beginning of the pandemic, and I was feeling the call to write again. Same topic. I'd heard Reverend Ed Bacon say to be gay is a gift from God on an Oprah like after show about something. And it resonated in a way nothing ever that I'd heard in church resonated. And so what I did was I sat down and I'm gonna write this out. I'm gonna write it to inspire other people to understand the gift that it is to be gay. I mean, James Baldwin says that, to be Black and gay, I mean, you hit the lottery. And so I wanted to be able to give that same feeling to others. And what happened in the process is that it became less about trying to prove scriptures and to argue with people, but it became about self examination and shedding some of the same um, bad theologies that I've been taught and some of the things I've been told in the church. And so, what it was and has become is a way for people who are wrestling with their faith and their sexuality to read this book and come to terms and to find another tool to use. And at the same time, for family members who love God but love their sons or daughters or grandchildren and say, how do I reconcile my faith with my humanness that says that I love everyone? So that's really how it came about.
Have you seen things change over time? Has it been better for Black queer people in the church over time, or what have you seen in terms of any kinds of shifts? People opening their hearts a little bit more as society kind of moves forward.
I think that it is I'll say that there's always been this element in the Black church of women outweighing the men, but it hasn't been reflected in leadership.
Mhm.
Um, Dr. Kelly Brown Douglas says that uh, Black women and Black gay men have held up the Black church tradition, yet we are not represented in that leadership.
Yeah.
And so currently, of the seven, sometimes controversial, eight major Black church denominations, zero are affirming or inclusive or and inclusive. And so, as much as we've made progress where people are opening up their hearts and they acknowledge, we're still kind of stuck in the don't ask, don't tell
Mm.
stage in the Black church. And so, I think that there is more openness in small pockets here and there. And there's openness to, well, you're my family member, so you're okay. Or you're the person that goes to this church, so you're okay. But the rest of those people, no. So I think that we still got a lot of work to do. But in that leadership role, I still look at the numbers and say that 0 of 7 are
Yeah.
affirming and inclusive. And this doesn't mean that individual churches have not decided to do their own thing, but
Mm.
of these major denominations in which, have fought for liberation for so many years,
Mm.
they're still imprisoning people in their own pews.
And would you share why do you think that is for those people who are pushing back, who are not opening their hearts? What do you think is happening there?
I think there's many things. A pastor friend of mine says, we don't like the word struggle because you can only struggle for so long and then it becomes an excuse. But we like people who wrestle, who are in it, who are moving about it. And I think one of the simplest things I can say to people is that sometimes we get held up on what um, Papa or Mima or Grandma or Grandpa said and taught and told us because they told us what they were taught. No one wants to say, well, my grandmother was wrong or my grandfather was wrong. And so walking into these spaces and saying everything that we've been taught, it feels like that. Although it's not everything, it's an opening up. It is a filling in of space of love for everyone. But to many people, it is that finite. This is what I was told. This is what I know. And you're trying to take all of that away from me. And we know in the current climate, for a lot of people, asking people to give up something else feels like asking them to give up their entire identity and childhood and memories. And so we have to do the work around where people are in this process.
Yeah, wonderful. And would you share any feedback that you've gotten from people who've read Holy Queer and who for whom, it made them feel seen maybe for the first time?
So thank you for that question. It is overwhelming to think because so many people have reached out and you write, and writing is a very solitary process, and you hope that it inspires people. But to have people come to you and have pages highlighted and sections and their questions already ready, like, well, why did you say this on this page? And then move me here. And I just knew when I read this line that like this was truth and that I could share this with my friends and to hear that much excitement and passion. It is not just a book for these people. It wasn't just a book for me, but it is a it is a tool for community and it is opening up people's hearts and helping people reconcile. For people to have wrestled since a small child or their teenage years and get all the way up into their 60s and then send me an email and say, I've always loved God. I left the church and then I read this book and I feel like God loves me and that those people were the problem, but not God. That to me that's everything.
I wonder, what do you think are next steps for people to, for allies who want to help those who are struggling, or for those who want to reach church leaders and try to, incorporate a more open attitude toward their queer folks in the community?
It's going to sound so cliche, but love.
Mm.
To love the people who are in the pew next to you, love the people who are sitting in front of you and behind you and who dress different and use different pronouns, and just love. Because the act of love is very contagious because love is liberating. And when you see one person living free, it makes you want to live free. And so that can catch on in your congregations. Talk to people. Talking to people, it's hard to hate people when you talk to them and get to know them.